being an alcoholic, I have found such relief and power in communication. Before, I bottled everything up and I wouldn't say anything on my mind. You can't expect this stuff to change if you're not going to be willing to take that first step.
Welcome to the Live Fit, Break Free podcast, a podcast about resilience, discovering purpose, and living life deep. Hey everybody, welcome to the Live Fit, Break Free podcast, episode 1. This is a very special episode for us. We're going to start and kick off our entire podcast with origin stories. Over the next couple months and hopefully years, we're going to be inviting just some amazing humans to come on our podcast and just share their experiences with various addictions and hopefully tell redemptive stories that bring real value to our listeners to help them either, continue to live a healthy life or find themselves in a better place. So I'm Jesse, founder of Altum Fitness, and I'm here with co-founder Justin Maziarz. Hi, Justin.
Jesse, how are we?
Good. Justin is kind of laughing because even though we're best friends, I just found out recently that I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah, it's another episode. We'll be specific to that one, but yes.
So Justin Maziarz, we're going to dive into your story here.
Awesome.
Episode 1. And, I think what I'm so looking forward to is Justin and I didn't really go into exactly where this conversation was going to go. I think what I want to try to do is just true origin story, start kind of from the beginning.
Yeah, man.
Work our way forward. We'll talk about what various kind of addictions and what role specifically. I know alcohol has been a major part of your life.
Absolutely.
We'll go there and just kind of bring us through everything and we'll get to the redemptive part as well. But why don't we just start with the big old open-ended question, Justin? Just kind of tell us, about you growing up and we'll kind of work our way through.
Absolutely, man. First and foremost, thank you for having me on episode number 1. Very excited to be diving into all things addiction and the redemptive side of it as well, which I feel like is super important and definitely an area I'm excited to dive into. But going way back, so when I tell my story, I like to start literally at the beginning because I think it's really important. Growing up, I had in my opinion, perfect home life. I was very close with my parents, still together, still very close with them. My dad was my best man at my wedding. He's my best friend. And I had literally the perfect home life. And I think that's important to start with because I feel like there's a false stigma around addiction where it's like, you have to have the most effed up home life, the most rough upbringing. And then that's your story. You're going to end up an addict. Whereas for me, it was different. Addiction does run in my family. I learned that in my high school years with my cousin who was he was a heroin addict. But at that time, that was so new to me where I was just kind of like, what is that? Like, that will never happen to me. Like, here, I'm never going to touch that stuff. So I knew about addiction growing up, but I didn't know, I guess it was real and it could happen to me. So again, great home life, big into sports. I went to Catholic school, K through 12. And, I loved it. Baseball and ice hockey were my life. I went to school at Widener, played baseball my freshman year there. It's a ton of fun. And that was, again, school, baseball, hockey, family was my life growing up.
Did your parents drink alcohol? Like, was it something that you were around?
It was always around, always casual though. Like I can remember 0 times ever seeing my parents drunk. And that's why to me, it was just like, oh yeah, dad's having some beers or mom's having wine. It didn't mean anything to me. I didn't think anything else. I thought it was like everyone did that.
Yeah.
As the years started going on, I got into high school, things started picking up a little bit more in terms of me experimenting with alcohol and other things. But it was never more than like, in my opinion, I guess my sheltered view, like it was the typical high school partying in my eyes. Like I drank on the weekends, maybe with friends, but it was never like I was drinking during the week in high school or I was blacking out like nonstop.
If it wasn't a frequency thing, was it an intensity thing? Even when in high school, were you ever getting in trouble or anything like that?
I mean, I got in trouble, but it was more so I don't want to say typical kids growing up, but like hiding alcohol, getting caught with it. And then, hiding cigarettes and hiding cigars and all that kind of stuff. But it was never, there was a problem at all, like with anything. Like it was just, this is life, this is fun. And it was great. Like I was good. I was maintaining everything and then head into college. And I definitely lived up the party life with baseball and everything, leaned heavily into that. And I had a blast. And, I ended up graduating college on Dean's List. I had great grades. I had a full-time job right away. After graduation is where things really started turning for me for the worse.
And so when you say you started leaning into college baseball and that whole thing, say a little bit more
That
about
was
that.
me experimenting with other, like leaning into, well, maybe I'll try more of a Xanax or more of the Klonopin or
Got
more
it.
whatever was around. Not saying whatever was around I would take, but like that introduced me to there's more out there than just alcohol.
Got it.
But that stuff never really grabbed a hold of me as much as alcohol did.
Okay, but did alcohol grab a hold of you while you were in college, or were you starting to say when you graduated?
When I
Okay,
graduated,
say
I
more about that.
started
So,
noticing anxiety towards the end of my senior year of college, like the sweats in class or like getting shaky or my heart racing. And I didn't know what it was at first.
never
And
experienced it before.
I never more than like, because I thought I had anxiety in high school more than just like, oh, I'm stressed out about this chem test I have tomorrow. But it was never like to the point where it affected me physically. And then after college, I started going to doctors to see what was going on. Like I didn't understand why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. And the first doctor that I went to, I wasn't even engaged or anything yet at the time. He prescribed me Xanax. And he said, this is going to help your anxiety and your panic attacks, and it's going to take them away. He wasn't wrong. Did it help? Yeah, but it also turned me into a zombie. I should have been in a lot of trouble multiple times because mixing alcohol and Xanax when I was prescribed it.
That decision from the physician, I presume, to say, "Hey, got this problem. Here's some Xanax." Was that an extensive conversation, or did it feel as though that
In
was
and
just
out.
in and out,
In and out,
Okay.
man.
All
In
right.
and out.
I
Multiple
presume-
doctors. Like I've been on a litany of anti-anxiety meds. I'm still on medicine today for my SSRI. But yeah, he was like, try these. And then, he ended up upping my dosage. And then I was on those for a couple years and I got engaged. And then, it even almost ruined my wedding day.
When
Yes.
did you meet Liz?
So I met my beautiful wife sophomore year of college. And then after college, I tried keeping a lot of the stuff from her.
Okay.
Because in my head at the time, I had a false view of what a man needed to be or what a husband was. A husband to me at the time was somebody who couldn't show negative emotion, couldn't show when they were hurt, couldn't show when things were wrong. In my head, I always had to be this rock. So I did not communicate anything when it came to negative feelings or emotions or anxieties. I bottled it all up.
And can you put your finger on anything during that transition that maybe caused or triggered you to start having intense anxiety? Was there
Yeah.
anything-
So the first time I had a panic attack, I ended up in the hospital because I didn't know what was going on. I was working at QVC. I was running their paid search and was there for about 2 years. And one day I was sitting at my desk and I felt like I got hit by a brick wall of I thought I was dying. My heart felt like it was doing things it shouldn't do. I was dripping sweat. I was shaking. I couldn't walk. So my friend Evan took me to the hospital and none of us knew what was going on at the time.
You had never experienced anything
I've
like that?
never experienced anything.
And how
like
much
it.
at that point, I'm just curious, how much at that point, like frequency wise, are you drinking?
With me, man, it was never a daily thing.
Okay.
Like with me, it was situational and I would binge hard. Whenever there was a stressful situation, anything that I didn't like the way it made me feel, I knew that there was one thing that I could go to make me not feel anything. And in my eyes at that time, that was the best decision to make, where it was the worst one. So back with the whole Xanax and everything, was still prescribed those at the time of my wedding, but I told my wife or my fiance at the time that I wasn't going to take one that day and I was only going to have one drink before.
On your wedding?
On my wedding day, before the ceremony. And that didn't happen.
What happened?
I drank way too much with my groomsmen at my apartment during pictures and everything. And then I ended up taking a Xanax before because I thought I was going to have a panic attack as we were about to leave. I ruined the ceremony. Going to weddings today is still hard for me because I took that away from my wife. Okay. I was standing up there at the altar and the pastor who was marrying us was reading from the Bible with one hand and his other hand was holding onto my arm because I was swaying so much because I was so messed up. Even looking at the pictures still, man, like I can't look at them. And the fact that I can sit here and say that I can't look at my wedding pictures makes me feel like the worst husband ever. And, that's just one of the many things alcohol took away or played a part in me ruining something great. Even after the wedding, though, that still wasn't enough for me to stop. So, after the wedding, there was our honeymoon, which I also ruined by blacking out multiple times after telling my wife I wouldn't drink. And I remember waking up in the bed one afternoon on our honeymoon to Alyssa on the phone with her mom and dad on the balcony of our honeymoon suite talking about an annulment. And that still wasn't enough.
Wow.
So after the honeymoon, we come back, things are okay. I was infamous for the short-term sobriety streaks of like, I would go 1 month without drinking, and then I would go 3 months without drinking, and then something would happen. And then it got to the point where I would get to 4 to 5 months without any issues with socially drinking and being able to handle myself. And then inevitably that foot always dropped, and I always took it too far. So about 7 years ago, I was in a leadership position at the place I'm at now. And I had a team of people reporting into me, and my agency was flying everybody across the country to Florida for a company retreat, which was like a 3-day party. And agency lifestyle, I'm a digital marketing director for a firm or agency in Philly. Agency mentality, at least back in the day, was work hard, party a lot, effing harder. And I remember the first night there at the retreat, things were okay. Like, we went out, there weren't any issues. Second night, after 4 p.m., I don't remember anything. I got put to bed by one of my direct reports, and I woke up to about 20 missed calls and texts from my wife. And she had no idea where I was at. She was home with my first daughter and pregnant with my second at this time. And here I am going MIA for 16 hours straight because I can't handle myself. At that moment was when the first conversation was had about, you need to do something or something has to change here. And I remember sitting on the bed having the conversation, like, I don't know what it looks like, but we're going to have to start calling IOP. Like, I
say again, call
like IOP or outpatient places to see if you can get in. And I remember her saying exact words, like, I didn't sign up for this. So I got home, called people right away, ended up going into this IOP in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It was like four nights a week for 3 hours. I had to submit the drug test. I had to do all these things. And I did it. I did all of it. And I stayed sober. And it was about 6 months, I think 5 or 6 months of the program before I graduated. But the whole time I was in there, Jess, I knew I wasn't doing it for me. Because every time somebody's talking, I'm like, I'm not as bad as you.
The other people in the group
are sharing their stories, or guys talk about shooting heroin with dirty needles. And, a lady's talking about chugging a plane of vodka every 3 hours. I'm like, oh, I'm fine.
Right.
So I graduate from this program, and the last night they had a family night where Alyssa, the wife, the husband, meet with the counselor.
Okay.
And for like a one-on-one session. And Alyssa asked her, can Justin ever drink again? And the lady looked at me and she said, no. I broke down crying in that room immediately.
Why?
Because I felt like, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? You're going to sit there and say I can never have a drink again in my entire life. I just did this for 6 months. I had all these justifications and reservations in my head of why I deserve to be able to drink again.
Is the intent of IOP for everyone in it to never drink again? Or was that kind of the discernment of the counselor? I
think everyone's story's different, but I mean, if you're in there for a reason. Okay. And there's no talk of being able to drink or use again when you're in there.
All right. So the goal
is to remain abstinent forever and to give you the tools to do so. But when you're in the position that I was in and the state of mind that I was in, I wasn't listening to anything that I didn't want to hear. So I manipulated my wife into convincing her that we should try just drinking wine. I wanted so badly to not be an alcoholic that I wanted to prove to everybody that I could drink socially. So I was like, all right, no hard stuff. Let's just do wine. And then it progressed to, all right, no hard stuff. Let's just do wine and beer. And then, I would be fine. And then one weekend I would black out. I would get 13% beers and try and tell my wife that they were like 5%.
Why do you think you're doing that?
Because I wanted the feeling of not feeling.
Not feeling what?
The shame
of
who I was, not being able to face the things that I knew I needed to face, not being able to work through the emotions that I knew were holding me back from being the person that I knew I was supposed to be.
I think a lot of people can relate with that.
Yeah. So, we have kids now at this point in my story. About 5 years ago, the night before Father's Day, I don't remember what happened, like what caused me to drink. All I remember is I don't remember going to the liquor store. I don't remember buying it. I remember sitting in the front of my house in my Honda Accord with a pint of vodka, and I chugged the entire thing. And then I tried walking inside immediately after and acting like nothing was wrong. So I walk inside. My Alyssa knows immediately what's going on and flips it. Like, we get in a huge fight. I try lying about it. End up knocking myself out on my kitchen floor, splitting my head open, blood everywhere. Had to get taken to the hospital by a pastor at my church. I come back home. I sleep on the couch that night. And I woke up to Addison standing over me on the couch, looking at me. And instead of saying Happy Father's Day, Daddy, she said, Daddy, what happened to your face? And at that time, I'm like, huh. Like, I didn't even like, I had to go look in the mirror. And it was at that point that I needed to do more. And we pack up the car. We take me to my IOP place in Cherry Hill, Seabrook. We meet with one counselor. One of the main reasons why I'm still alive today. We met with him, and they did my intake and everything. And they called insurance and tried to get everything through. You know how messed up the healthcare system is in our country? My insurance company denied me and said that I wasn't bad enough to go to inpatient rehab. When I'm standing there, stitched up face, 2 black eyes, dry blood all over the place. I can't even open my eyes. And they're like, nah, he's fine.
What would constitute not fine if that's fine?
Dude, I wish I knew. And at that point, Matt, the guy there, he starts making some phone calls. And he comes back out of his office. Alyssa and I are sitting there. I'm hysterically crying. She's crying. I'm petrified. She's scared. He comes walking out and he said, you're going right now. I got you a bed.
Wow.
And he got me a bed in the long-term recovery part of Seabrook, which was like a step up from the residential side. So I spent 2 nights in residential, which is freaking jail, pretty much. Like, you're sleeping on a mattress that thick. And that was, you want to talk about rock bottom, man. I typically say rock bottom was my kitchen floor. And it was that. And then it was the first night sitting alone in this white cinder block room with nothing to my name but a pen and a paper. I had nothing. And all I did was I just started writing and praying. And I knew that I was at a place where if I didn't make a change and I didn't do the hard stuff that I knew that I needed to do, I was going to lose everything. When I was in there for 30 days, I came out and I was on fire, man. And in my head, when I got out, I was like, man, I just got to get to 6 months. And then for some reason, I had it in my head that everything was going to be fine after 6 months. So I'm going to meetings. I did 90 and 90, which is 90 meetings in 90 days once you get out.
Okay.
You know, I was trying to do all the things that I was supposed to do. I didn't even make it to 6 months. I made it to 5 months, 2 weeks, and 5 days, I think.
What happened?
I relapsed. And that was the last one. That was the last one. I'm not going to say that everything was fine after that because everything wasn't fine. I stopped relapsing, but I didn't do the work that I needed to yet. So I tried replacing alcohol with steroids. And that was on to the next. I'm just trying to constantly fill this hole with any substance or anything that I can that's going to make me not have to look deeper. After I relapsed, 3 of my friends from Seabrook showed up at my house and took me to a meeting. That's where I met my sponsor, Trent. Trent was my sponsor that stuck. Trent took me through the steps. And that was the one thing that was missing. Out of all the years of me messing up and wondering why, I didn't do any of the stuff that I know I needed to do. Doing the step work was probably one of the scariest parts of my life.
And just for anyone listening that might not know, when you say step work, what are you referring to exactly?
So the 12 steps, and they are all equally intense. The first and foremost, you know, admitting that you're powerless over alcohol. And, you know, the steps involve many things from taking a self-inventory, which, dude, I still have that book where I did my 4th step, and that was the hardest thing I think I've ever done in my entire life, because that requires you to literally peel back the layers of the onion of you, the things that you didn't even know existed. And you literally understand why you tick the way that you tick and how you can catch these things. I knew that that meant facing my demons. And I was so comfortable being in pain and like comfortable living in the hell that I created of the cycle of things are great, things are great, things are great. Oh, fuck, things are horrible right now.
Yeah.
And it was so cyclical for years, man. The fact that I have a wife and family that stood by me blows my mind. And talk about grateful, man. Being where I'm at now in this journey, life is so much different than I ever thought it could be. Tomorrow will be 4 years.
4 years sober.
4 years sober, man.
Amazing. Amazing.
That is something I never thought would ever come out of my mouth.
if you were to say your overall experience in the AA community, is that how I talk about it?
Yeah.
The AA community. Yep. How much of that program and those people would you attribute towards where you sit here today on the brink of 4 years in another couple hours, buddy?
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Definitely in the beginning, AA was the glue that I needed to hold my stuff together and really help me pick up the pieces in order to have some sense of structure and really know where to begin. I had no idea where to begin, Jess. When I got out, being in rehab was the easy part, man. They hand feed you everything. And it's like, once you get out in the real world, it's like, oh shit, none of this stopped when I was in there.
Back in the wild.
Yeah. So it was an adjustment. Going back home was definitely interesting. Like I did feel like I was, walking around on eggshells a little bit in the beginning, but rightfully so. But AA definitely helped me in the beginning immensely. I will say the past year and a half, maybe 2 years, I haven't shut AA out, but I have stopped going to meetings as much as I have. My community and my circle that I associate myself with and surround myself with has kept me more sober and sane than I think any other program. There's anything wrong. Whatever keeps you sober, man, that's a God-given gift. I don't care how you did it, whether it was AA, the steps, NA, whatever it is, just be damn proud of yourself and keep going. Get another day. The fitness community, my family, my church, God, like that's another part I left out of all this right now so far is God.
It's not too late.
Talk about redemption. The 9th step is basically making amends with all the people that you hurt throughout your addiction. So my 9th step consisted of my wife, my family, my in-laws, some of my friends. The last person that I had to make amends with on my list, that was the hardest person to make amends with and forgive. Who do you think that was? Myself.
Yeah.
And I couldn't look myself in the mirror for months, year, even after I relapsed, and be proud. It took a long time.
As you sit here today, would you say that you forgive yourself?
Yes.
Because even the way you still talk about, like, just say your wedding day, there is still like an intense.
There is.
There's intensity when you talk about it.
There's a lot, man. I have forgiven myself because I understand the power of how much is relinquished when you're able to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
And it was also so not ignorant, but like I was expecting all these people I was making amends with to forgive me when I couldn't even forgive myself. You know what I mean? And that was kind of the epiphany that made me realize, like, why are you so mean to yourself? Why do I talk to myself the way that I talk to myself? Or why do I view myself the way that I view myself? And it was the addiction talking. I couldn't let go of the things that I needed to let go until I could relinquish the chains from myself. And I had it stuck in my head that all I was an alcoholic. All I was an addict. And all I was a liar, a shitty husband, a bad dad. And I held on to that for a while, man. And it took a long time for me to understand that, like, that's not who I am. That's a part of my story. Yeah, that's definitely a part of my story. But I turned the fucking page and I'm going to keep turning the page. And those demons that were once driving the car are now in the back seat and I'm driving.
But they're still in the
They're
car.
still there. They're still there and they're not going to go anywhere. And that's why it's important to do this and do the things that we're doing now, because the most important thing that I've learned throughout this journey of sobriety is I cannot stay sober unless I give it back. And, there's so many cliche sayings in AA in the beginning. I hated them and I made fun of them, but they're there because they're true, man. And the one saying that I hold on to a lot is you can't keep it unless you share it. And that is so damn true, man. And just the community that has been created and has grown so much, I feel like over the past 10 years of, recovery and just such an emphasis on the importance of not just abstaining from things, but understanding why you're choosing these things as your vice, right? The drinking, the drugs, the picking up, it's all a symptom. The drinking is a sign that there's a much bigger problem that I am not dealing with, which is right in here.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to understand that too, that like, this is so much more than just not drinking. Like this journey is so much more than just not picking up your drug of choice, you know? And the sooner you realize that, I feel like the sooner you're going to get this and the sooner you're going to be able to start really helping people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well said. Well said. Is your plan, I don't know what word to use here, but never drinking again?
Yes.
Can I assume that? Okay.
I can't, man. I made a decision and I'm not going to sit here and promise I'm never going to drink again because I'm ignorant to do that.
But it's the goal.
The goal is to never pick up another drink again in my entire life.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to make sure that you're at least striving the best you can towards that goal?
That's a great question. I'm going to go to another cliche mantra from AA, but the whole one day at a time thing.
Yeah.
There's some serious, powerful truth to that,
Yeah.
bro.
Say more about that one.
You know, being an alcoholic and being somebody who's riddled with anxiety problems, I have found such relief and power in communication. And prior to this, like I said before, I bottled everything up and I wouldn't say anything on my mind. And now it's to the point where I walk into the room and my wife's like, okay, we're going to talk now because I can see something's happening with your face.
You carry it.
Yeah, I do. And oh boy, I carry it. But communication, getting ahead of things. And when there's something I know that I need to do that I don't want to do, doing that right away. Because if not, I'm a big procrastinator. You know, I can let my anxiety get in the way of many different things. So there's so many things now, which is great, honestly. Getting plugged in is huge. Plugged in any capacity, whether that's AA, whether that's sober groups, other sober people, other sober friends. That has been so freeing for me, and surrounding myself with people that are in the same journey as I am and want to just continue to better themselves in every way possible. Communication, man. I think that's that, and being willing to communicate. Like you can't expect this stuff to change if you're not going to be willing to take that first step. And that's, hey, we got to talk, or hey, I need help. You know, you'd be surprised how many people are silently suffering, which sucks. And is one of the things that I want to just rip apart, is that the fact that, again, there's people that feel like they have nothing. Because I was one of those people too, man. I thought there was nowhere else to turn besides that stupid bottle.
Right.
And it's so far from the truth. And I mean, now even with all the NA options out there, like you changed my life with that when you handed me my first NA. It was a Golden Dawn Athletic Brew.
Yeah. Oh, a little plug there.
Sorry, yeah.
Little
and
plug.
Ever since then, I was like, wait a second. This is cool.
Yeah.
And, you know, that avenue has just exploded. That market is huge.
Yeah,
And,
sure is.
definitely one that I'm a huge fan of. But there's sober bars now. There's, you know, NA options out at bars. There's so many things for people like us to help us feel normal, for lack of better words, and be able to go out and do all the things that we want to do. And
I hope this is a word. I've said it. No one's called me out yet, but destigmatize. I think it's a word. But I think what I felt personally, and what you're touching on there, is not drinking, to use that term. It's being destigmatized. It's moving towards being more socially acceptable. I feel as though genuinely growing up, like it was the norm is an understatement. I mean, at least in where I come from, well, it's a whole nother day, whole nother story. But it was, if you don't drink, what's wrong with you?
Exactly.
Whereas now it's almost becoming, I'm sensing like a counter culture,
which is beautiful.
It's amazing.
It's
amazing, and it just makes it easier, I guess.
You know? It makes it easier, makes it less scary, I think, for people who are new to this. And it's just, it makes it more welcoming, I feel like, you know what I mean? And there's so much to be said about the getting plugged in the community side, though, because I mean, it's easy to pick up another bottle or another can that's labeled something different without alcohol. But if you're still not dealing with the stuff underneath, you're going to be right back where you were, whether it's a month from now, a year from now, a day from now. Like this stuff isn't a joke, man. And I've buried over 8 friends over the years from this. And I'm sick of burying friends and hugging my friends' moms. And there's not going to be a change unless you're the person who wants to do it. And we need people to step up in this community, and we need people to do the hard stuff and be the changes that we want to see. And the more that we have people talking about this kind of stuff and shedding light on it, you know, is just going to continue to further make this movement even stick even more. Because like you said, back in the day, the norm was you were drinking. And now, even still, there's some, maybe not so much today, but in the past couple of years, I feel like alcohol has been the one drug that you would get questioned for not using. And it's, why are you not drinking? You want me to tell you why I'm not? I'll give you the whole story if you want. I'll split my head up and make horrible decisions, potentially lose my family. Is that enough for you? But yeah, I'm going to choose my words carefully here, because obviously over the years of my addiction, I hurt people and I made a lot of bad choices, and I regret that. And I wish I could change that, but I don't regret being an alcoholic, because these past 4 years have been the most eye-opening 4 years of my entire life. And I finally feel like I'm back, you know, to a degree. I'm not going to not every day you wake up is hunky dory. Yay, let's be sober today. Like some days are hard. I was telling Jesse earlier today, This last year has been the hardest year in my sobriety.
Yep.
The hardest freaking year, from family stuff, people dying, sickness, personal crap. Like, everybody goes through their own stuff, you know? And the fact that I'm still able to sit here and say that I didn't pick up a drink this past year, I'm sorry. I'm fucking proud of that.
Heck yeah. Good for you, man. People are striving for that.
That's the motivation. I don't know what next week's going to bring. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but if I can put my head on the pillow tonight knowing that I didn't pick up a drink, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well said. And, you know, a theme kind of coming through you, bursting out of you, is this idea that you want to pay it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unique time in both of our lives. We're together. We're launching Altum Fitness.
Yes, sir.
Right? Why now? What are you looking forward to? And just kind of share a little bit about why Altum Fitness is going to be part of your own sobriety story.
Yeah, man.
We're trying to reach people,
Yeah.
right? But we also have talked, you know, offline that this is going to help both of us
So much.
But like, just a little bit on what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, man. And I think this goes perfectly with the whole saying of, you know, you can't keep it unless you share it, right? Like,
yeah,
this is the stuff that makes a difference. You know, this is the stuff that's going to help people not pick up today. And being a part of that is a gift from God. And having the opportunity to be where I'm at right now with Altum and starting this with you has been a dream come true. And knowing the impact that we've already had is great. And we're on episode 1. And I think a month, 2 months from now, you know, the reach and the amount of people that we're going to be able to associate ourselves with and have in our network and just be a part of our tribe, man. Like, that stuff is what's going to keep me sober. It's going to keep me sober, man.
absolutely.
And at that same time as keeping me sober, it's going to keep you sober, and it's going to keep all of the people that we're trying to work with sober. And that, to me, is something that you cannot put a price tag on and say that's worth X amount of money, because to me, that's worth more than the lottery.
If you had to pick one thing, one piece of advice, one piece of wisdom, and no run-on sentence connecting 3 different things, just one piece of advice for anyone listening that's thinking like, man, like I relate with some piece of Justin's story. I am there currently, or even I don't want to be there. But if you could pick one thing that's going to help somebody, your words, I think it's your words, one more day, right? Just do one day. What would that one piece of advice be?
Reach out to me. Someone, reach out to anybody, because that, when you're in the thick of it, I'll be the first to admit it, that phone never feels heavier than it does at that moment. And the last thing you want to do is talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
And whenever the thought comes to your mind, oh, that's the last thing I want to do, you better go do that thing right now, because that thing's going to keep you sober.
Yeah, I love it.
And that's so powerfully true. It's not even funny, man.
Amazing. Anything else you want to share?
Just keep going. You know, there's days where I feel like I'm not going to make it, and then I wake up and it's another day, you know, and there's so much to be thankful for. And I feel like it's so easy with all the addiction and, you know, the horror stories to focus on the negative and, you know, how bad things were and how awful of a person I was or whatever. But like, I have so much to be grateful for and thankful for. Like, we all do.
Amen.
And even on the days where we feel like we have nothing, we got today.
Amen to that.
And that's a lot more than most people can say.
Yeah. Amen, man. Well, listen, I love you.
I love you, brother.
You've got an amazing, amazing story. It takes a lot of courage that I'm still trying to muster up to just share your story, to pick up that phone, to tell somebody. And you've been doing that, and you've been so transparent and vulnerable. And I commend you for it. I thank you for coming and sharing your story with even more people now. Just an amazing guy, and I appreciate you so much, brother.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. We're excited for this journey together.
Hosted by Altum Fitness, this podcast is an extension of our mission to empower individuals to use fitness and community to break free from alcohol and other harmful addictions to live their best life yet. The Live Fit, Break Free podcast.